when I was about 8 or 9, 10 years old, and I wanted to become a married missionary. Well, I thought this would be an amazing picture to make at some point. At first, I didn't really immediately know, while I was reading the book, how to realize it, make it real. There's a few scenes in the film that affect me, there's no doubt. One of the martyrs in the ocean. And while we were there, you could feel it. When we were shooting it, I'm telling you, you could feel it. Well, I think it's the depth of faith. It's where it's the struggle for the very essence of faith. The vehicle that one takes towards faith can be very helpful. It's the church, the institution of the church, the sacraments. This all can be very helpful, but ultimately it has to be yourself. Do we have that kind of faith here in America? Does our culture reflect that? I don't know if it does. I did. I thought for years about other ways of thinking, other political system, economics, other religions, But my roots are here. So I hope that there was a place that I could explore those thoughts and those contradictions in an intelligent way that's still within the Christian faith.
What's that process like for you spiritually?
It's a pilgrimage. We're still on the road. It's never going to end.
Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and congratulations on the great movie.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about your religious upbringing?
My first 7 years or so of life, I was living in a nice two-family house in Corona, Queens. My eldest brother and my mother and father. In Corona, it was very, very nice. Trees there. It was like a small town, like a village. And there wasn't much, I didn't remember anything about religion at that point. But because of some family problems, we were evicted back to Elizabeth Street, where my mother and father were born, actually. And in the building, 241 Elizabeth Street, where that still exists, in the third floor front, my father's parents, my grandparents, thrown into that area at that point, having severe asthma, there was a difference of day and night. It was something in my mind that was idyllic, suddenly thrown into, cast out of paradise, so to speak, into the diaspora. And it basically was like dead-end kids running around the streets with garbage cans, and it was an incredible, thriving, almost medieval village in a way, with grocery stores, fish stores, pork stores, all kinds of things going on, funeral parlors, luncheonettes, hardworking people, a criminal cast, also a criminal element. But the main thing was that there was the St. Patrick's Old Cathedral around the corner. From a public school, I was sent to St. Patrick's School. I was, by that point, I think in the second or third grade, and I was suddenly thrown into a very strict, mid-20th century New York Catholic environment.
You spent a lot of time praying in the church? Or
yes,
going
in
to
the
mass?
church,
Yeah.
going to
yourself,
Mass,
or, yeah.
by myself. My family wasn't very religious that way, but I just found comfort there because the streets were pretty rough. Having the severe asthma, I was told I couldn't do anything. If you're told that repeatedly and you have enough breathing problems, then you really believe it. But my parents in the mid to late 40s, uneducated and working class, they just didn't know what to do. They just knew I couldn't breathe, and so I was more or less protected a lot. But when you're in the street, you're not really protected. There's a pecking order is not the word, but there's a testing all the time, tougher kids, younger kids, and then you try to make sense of it all. You try to make sense of the dynamic of the family, what a family means, what a family unit is, the extended family of the aunts and uncles, my grandmother and grandfather in 241 Elizabeth Street, my grandmother and grandfather in Queens, my mother's side of the family, the Kappa side. Her brothers and sisters, some of them were still living in the neighborhood on Prince Street and on Lafayette. And so it was like a living organism, the whole place. And the church was the center.
But the church sounded like it was a haven for you?
Yes, it
growing up?
was. It really was a haven. And so it took me out of this, how should I put it, the everyday world, that the practical world of my parents, my aunts, uncles, grandparents, and their lives, in a way, that there was something beyond that too, and that somehow what I thought I had perceived in the church, or what I was trying to applied to how we lived. Yet I don't recall if there was anything specific. In other words, my father being very specific about religion in any way, but they were working out how one lives a good life, and on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis, and responsibilities and obligations. And this was and a decency. It was very important in a world that was pretty indecent.
Did that religiosity continue as an adolescent?
Yes, it did. I was in the altar boys for quite a while. I was in choir also. The priests and the monsignors who were there were really there for the older Italian generation, the ones who hardly spoke English and that sort of thing. They didn't really relate to the younger people, and until there was one priest who was stationed there. It was his first parish, actually. His father, Francis Principe, and it was 1953. I was 11 or 10 or 11. And so he was there for about 6 years. And then the formative years for me, really, he was the mentor in a way. He was in his early 20s and balanced out a kind of old world mentality that was transplanted from the old world, from Sicily and from
Right.
Naples. And basically was the one who pointed the way through literature, cinema, music. He was the one who looked at us at one point, myself and my friends, and he said, "You don't have to live this way." And what he meant was that there seemed to be a cycle of 20 or 21. In order to separate from the parents, you marry. Then you have children, and then the same thing happens, and it goes on and on like this. And there might be something else in this country that offers you opportunities, and it could be a different life, and also opens the mind.
So you're a religious person all the way throughout college as well? Is that right?
For a long period of time, I was fascinated by stories of the missionaries when I was about 8 or 9, 10 years old. And I wanted to become a Maryknoll missionary.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What appealed to you about the missionaries of the Maryknolls?
The courage, the testing, and the helping. I thought this was something that would be extraordinary. The nuns really liked that. The next thing I know, I meet this Father Principe. I said, well, I want to be like this. And so I wound up at Cathedral Prep. I think it was called a kind of a preparatory seminary here in New York. But I was about 14 or 15, and that's the age when everything clicks another way. And I realized that, many are called, but few are chosen. So the vocation, you don't dedicate your life to Jesus in a sense of being a cleric, unless you really have the calling, this is not something to, in other words, it isn't to be like somebody else. It has to come from you.
Right.
It's a very serious and very sacred calling. And are you up for it? Is that in you? No. And if it isn't, then how do you try to live a good life while being on the outside, in a sense, not being in the church as someone who, as a priest or a cleric in the church? How do you do that? And so I was really crushed when I was thrown out of there.
But you've always been interested, it sounds like, in missionary work.
Yes.
So when did you run across Silence, the book?
I got involved with Cousin Zakis' book, Last Temptation of Christ. I wanted to make that. And by 1988, when that was finally made, and it was about to be released, there was a great deal of an uproar, and we had to show the film what was the film at that moment anyway, two different religious groups to show what it was, rather than arguing about it without having seen it. And one of the people there was Archbishop Paul Moore of New York, Episcopal, and he came to a little meeting afterwards, a small dinner we had, and he felt that the film, as he said, was Christologically correct. And he told us many stories. He was a very interesting man. And then he said, I'm going to send you a book. And he described some of the stories in the book, and he described the confrontation, the choices, quote unquote, the concept of apostasy and faith. And received the book a few days later. And by 1989, a year later, is when I read it. I had promised the great Japanese director Akira Kurosawa to be in a film of his called Dreams. He wanted me to play Van Gogh. So I was 15 days over schedule on Goodfellas. The studio was furious. My cameraman left because he had another picture to do. Somebody else came in. We were just scurrying to finish, and Kurosawa was waiting for me in Japan. He had finished, he was 82 years old, and he had just finished the majority of the shooting, and he had only my scene to shoot, and he was waiting. And it was very nerve-wracking. And within 2 days after shooting that film, we flew to Tokyo and then to Hokkaido. And while I was there, I read the book. Actually finished it on the bullet train from Tokyo to Kyoto.
So you read Silence in Japan.
Yeah.
And this is 89?
1989, August, September. And that's when I thought, I thought this would be an amazing picture to make at some point. At first I didn't think so. At first I didn't really immediately know, while I was reading the book, how to realize it, make it real, stage it, because I didn't know the heart of it. I hadn't, in other words, I didn't quite, if not understand, then was able to really interpret it.
How would you describe the heart of the book?
Well, I think it's the depth of faith. It's where it's the struggle for the very essence of faith, stripping away everything else around it. The vehicle that one takes towards faith can be very helpful. It's a church, the institution of the church, the sacraments. This all can be very helpful, but ultimately it has to be yourself, and you have to find it. You have to find that faith, or you have to find a relationship with Jesus, I think, with yourself, really, because ultimately that's the one you face.
But the shock is, without describing the ending or the movie, that the character finds that what he is about to do, or what he does, is antithetical to what probably all of Christian culture in Europe thinks should be done.
That's right. Yeah. And that's what was so compelling about telling the story, because how could you support that, or how could you champion his choice, his decision? And then you say, you put yourself in that place. You think about the weakness of the human spirit, weakness of humanity.
There's another part of the film, which is the story of the Japanese Christians. It's obviously not just about the Jesuits. How do you think moviegoers will grapple with this idea of people who are willing to undergo so much suffering for their faith? Do you think that's something that's understood today or appreciated?
Do we have that kind of faith here in America? Does our culture reflect that? I don't know if it does. I think faith here now is our technology, I think. But when they pull the plug from the technology, there's still got to be something. So, there's going to be that realization or that confrontation of yourself, really. And I do think those who died for their convictions and their belief, it's just an extraordinary that decision and that choice is something has to be respected. I think it does.
You described Catholicism or Christianity as a kind of haven for them, and earlier you described Christianity and Catholicism as a haven for you out of kind of the mean streets. Do you see any parallel between sort of what it offers the Japanese and what Christianity offered you?
I think it can. I think it can. Again, I think we have to respect that culture, though. You know, I was there a few weeks ago, and one of the actors said, I wasn't a very religious person. He said, but I do feel that my ancestors are looking out for me. This is all. I was surprised. It's another way of thinking, you know. And I think we have to respect that way of thinking. We have to respect that culture somehow. How can we introduce the elements of faith, Christian faith, in a culture that is so different?
Now, speaking of which, was it hard to portray? I mean, there's a lot of opposition and torture in the book. Was it hard, or were you worried about portraying the Japanese culture as oppressive, or?
Well, they're on an island. There was this big country called China. China was always trying to take over Japan. There was the kamikaze, the divine wind, that destroyed all the boats of Kublai Khan when they tried to take over. I mean, this is a sacred place. This is all they have. And they have to protect their culture. They have to protect their way of life and their way of thinking. And once it starts to be eroded, there will be no more Japan. There will be no more Japanese culture. And so they make it very clear. They kill people in a certainly graphic fashion, and as part of a public spectacle in a way. But the concept there ultimately was to have the ones who brought the doctrine deny the doctrine, and that would take care of all the rest.
What's it like? You have this book that means so much to you spiritually. You're able to work on it, and now you see the result. What's that process like for you spiritually?
Ultimately, what happens is it becomes like a pilgrimage. You go. It's a pilgrimage. We're still on the road. It's never going to end. I thought it would for a little while, but once I was there, I realized no. Even in the editing in this room, and it's unfinished. There was a lot of sacrifice to make the picture, whether it's a good picture or not. It's up to other people, but the thing is, for me, the spirituality, it helped to a certain extent. And it's something that I would want my children to feel comfortable with in the future.
Now, when you read the book, there are some scenes, I'm sure, that are very moving to you and that really affected you on a very deep level. When you see your film, what kind of reactions do you have to those scenes? Is it the same? Is it different?
There's a few scenes in the film that affect me. There's no doubt. There's one of the martyrs in the ocean.
It's a beautiful scene.
And while we were there, you could feel it. When we were shooting it, I'm telling you, you could feel it.
What could you feel?
Yeah, you felt the beauty and the spirituality of what was trying to be enacted. You could do it through the actors, through Shinya Tsukamoto and Yoshi Oida, who's played Ichizu, Andrew and Adam. It was gut-wrenching and sad and beautiful. Those caves were beautiful. When we went on location just to check those caves, when we were in there was a woman in there meditating. It's a special place. And so we spent a lot of time there. And it was comforting.
What do you think someone without faith would take from this film?
Well, we know that we know there are a lot of people who are going to be scathing, I would think, those without faith. The problem is the certitude, I think, particularly in the modern world because of our technology. And of course, we always think it does. I imagine that no matter what point in time, particularly from the Industrial Revolution on, you must have thought that this was the best we can ever do.
Sure.
In other words, this is the best of all possible worlds, and we're so advanced, and maybe we're not, but with the technology, and the possibility of explaining spirituality through chemistry of the brain. All of this, I think some people would be extremely hostile to it, or at least point out the negative aspects of the mission, so to speak.
Right.
You know, and there've been so many films, so many books on that anyway, in terms of going back to Aguirre, Wrath of God. But this goes beyond that, I think. This goes to the very essence of the gift that they brought.
So it's less of a portrayal of the missionaries that is just from the outside in, and it's more from the inside out.
That was the, and I think when you talk about why did it take me so long to be able to attempt to put it on the screen, that's the issue, the inside out. It wasn't the obvious story from it really was deeper. And I was saying yesterday to somebody that they'd asked again about Last Temptation. I said, yes, I know. And they said, well, do you think this was a direct offshoot? I said, well, no, Last Temptation went on. It was where I was at that time in my own search, and that left off on one track, and this took up another track. This went deeper. What I realized after that film, for myself, I'm just talking about it as a person in my own, that I had to go deeper, and it wasn't going to be easy. I don't say I have gone deeper. I'm just saying that I had to try.
That's interesting. You mean deeper in terms of it being more stripped away?
Yes, but also to the very understanding of what compassion is about.
Because in the end, it is the relationship between him and Jesus.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How has the making of the film influenced your faith life or your spirituality?
I think it's forced me to look at it very closely is an easy phrase, but it's to contemplate it and to accept. If I've gotten to a certain point, it's mainly because my life may be ending. It says you're older, so also there are people around me that are very close to me, and I'm finding that they actually, not intentionally, but they plus this story seem to clarify for me what life is, and it's like a gift in a way. Can I live up to it? I don't know. I honestly don't think so. But what you do is you keep trying. You just keep trying. That's the thing. But I thought for years about other ways of thinking, other political system, economics, other religions, But my roots are here, so I hope that there was a place that I could explore those roots and those feelings. I mean, those roots and how should I put it? Those roots and those thoughts and those contradictions in an intelligent way that's still within the Christian faith.